What exactly is formative assessment? How is assessment of learning different from assessment for learning or assessment as learning? Formative assessment is an ongoing assessment process that also provides developmental feedback to students. It is subdivided into three categories: assessment for learning, assessment of learning, and assessment as learning. It has long plagued teachers as to how they are different, if indeed there are any differences. Let's explore these categories of formative assessment together so that we are better equipped with the expertise required to use them effectively and efficiently in our teaching and learning episodes. Assessment for learning, AFL, has been a widely used phrase over recent years. This is exploring and evaluating where students are in their learning journey to effectively use the information to personalize their future learning. Assessment for learning allows teachers to establish where students' learning is going and determining the best way to get them there. Assessment for learning therefore feeds into planning of diagnostic questions and critical thinking questions. When done effectively, assessment for learning allows teachers to determine the learning activities and level of support students need to be successful. Assessment as learning is where students learn through assessing their work and that of others. When students are assessing their work using assessment criteria or other rubric, they are better able to monitor their own learning, evaluate their achievement, identify areas for development, and make the required adjustment so that they achieve their learning outcomes. Assessment as learning provides students with a deeper understanding of the learning concepts, the level of cognitive demand, and how to use the acquired knowledge in a variety of ways. They are therefore better equipped to reflect on their behaviors, approaches, and attitudes, and how these impact on their learning and their overall achievements. When teachers administer assessment of learning, it is with the intent to establish where students are in their learning journey, evaluate the learning outcomes, and gauge the level of interventions that are required to ensure that the learning intentions are achieved. Assessment of learning can be implemented as a quick assessment of specific learning intentions in the lesson, or as an assessment of a cluster of learning intentions at the end of a sequence of learning. Assessment of learning should be an activity to determine what students have learned, and using this information to inform plans for reteaching, determining relevant interventions, and providing improvements for students' further learning. All forms of assessments are equally useful in building up enough information about students and creating the ideal learning environment for them to thrive. Using these assessments effectively means that teachers do not need to rely purely on past data that might have become irrelevant or is broad spectrum and therefore not very informative on a micro scale. It also prevents the presumption of one size fits all and encourages the personalization of learning for the needs of the current learners. Students are therefore not limited by or confined to the data collected from standardized one-off assessments of their learning potential or their cognitive ability that was taken over long periods of time. How do you currently use formative assessment in your teaching? What are some of the types of assessment that you use the most? How will you adapt your teaching pedagogy now that you're aware of these different types of formative assessments?